In the previous video, we created a custom connector project using the Maven archetype. However, for this video, we will not be using that archetype and instead start from scratch using basic Mule project and then modify it. I have a use case. So as per the use case, I'll be creating two very basic connectors. One will be for get request and other will be for post request. Both of them are going to make a call to the site which has an API reqres.in. So let's get started. I'll create a new Mule project. I'll name it as my custom connector. Hit finish. And we have a project created. So let's clear the clutter first. I don't need this flow XML anymore because this is a connector project. I also need to modify this form.xml. I no more need this build plugins, dependencies, and plugin repository for the time being. I'll delete them. Now let's make some changes to the group ID. So group ID that I had in the previous archetype project was my company.connector. So let's use the same over here. Connectors. Artifact ID, I'll name it as REST connector. I don't want a snapshot version. It's final, so it's 1.0.0. Now packaging is where the things change. I'll change this Mule application to an extension. So this makes it a connector project, a module in short. Next, the name, let it be my custom connector for the time being. Now, once I save this, all the previous dependencies are gone, like the HTTP module which came over here, it's gone, and just the pretty basic things are left, like system library and the Mule server, which is obviously required. Now, still we are missing out a parent module, which is the module parent, and we need that since it has libraries that support the development of the module. So I'll quickly paste it. Let me align it. Okay, now once I save it, I have new dependency named Mule tests component plugin. So this has multiple packages which help in the development of the connector. Now let's start with creating some classes. So let me create a new package because usage of default package in Java is discouraged. So I'll create a com.mycompany package. Now the very beginning point of this module will be the extension class from where everything originates. So let me create a class called extension. Now remember, never name this class as extension right away, because when you decorate it with the annotation extension, the compiler will give you error as it gets confused which one means extension or the annotation. So instead use some custom name so that it retains the extension suffix and your custom prefix to make sense. So I'll name it as custom extension and hit on finish. I have this class for custom extension. Now we need to decorate it with some annotation, and the first annotation I'll use is at extension. Now this extension will have an attribute name, and I'll name it as REST. Now let me organize the import, Control Shift O. Remember, the import should be from Mule runtime extension and not from anywhere else. Otherwise, it will create a problem. So let's understand what does this extension mean. The extension is the beginning point of your module, and when you give it an attribute name as REST, it comes under the collection of REST. If I navigate back to the canvas and show you the modules part, you can see that all the HTTP based elements are under the HTTP module, right? So in the project, the number of connectors or operations or any other component that I make will come under the REST. So that's what the extension name REST means. It will come under that REST module. The next thing, I need to reserve a namespace in XML. So I'll use the annotation at XML, and this will have an attribute name prefix, and the prefix would be, I'll give this prefix as REST. Now remember, this reserves a namespace in XML, so ensure that the prefix is unique. And how this prefix works, if I go back to the canvas, I can show you. So if you see, there is Mule and XML namespace registered with name as HTTP. Now there will be a new one which will have instead of HTTP, it will have as REST. And the same will be for your operations, like if you have get, so it will become REST colon get. So that is where this XML would show its effect. Next is add configurations. So let's decorate it with configuration. So remember, don't be confused, just select configurations, and that too from Mule runtime. There is also a configuration annotation which might confuse you, but it's configurations. So this configuration needs a reference of some configuration class, right? So we'll refer a configuration class. Let me create a class. Now, if you see, we have just created a basic structure of the module, which is the module part. We have done this part. Now we are making a configuration, a reusable part which can be used by the different elements of a components of module. Okay, so let me create quickly a configuration, and this configuration, again, do not name it as configuration alone, add a prefix to it like custom configuration, because that will again have a decoration of add configuration. So I'll name it as custom configuration, and I'll hit finish. So I have a custom configuration class. Now I'll annotate this. Now since this class is ready, let's instead reference it over here, custom configuration dot class. All right, so at least the first part is ready, the module, we have declared the module, and this is the starting point. This is the starting point of my connector. Now configuration, as you know, is, if I go back to the canvas, is this part. So the configuration will have all the properties like your protocol, your host, your port, which can be used by a connector, right? And it can be used across multiple elements, multiple listeners. In this case, it would be used by between the get component. So I'll create three basic parameters like private string protocol. Sorry for the typo. String protocol and private string URL. Then I'll create, sorry, instead of URL, let me divide it into two parts, host and base path. Private string base path. So I just need this three parameters. I'll be using this three fields. Let's create setters and getters for this. Alt Shift S R, select all. Okay, now we have created. Next, I'll decorate this parameters. Now, since these are configuration parameters, what I'll do is I'll annotate this as parameters. Okay, so add parameter, and the parameter that I need to use is from the Mule runtime. So I'll use add parameter for all the three fields. Okay, so I've used add parameter for all the three fields. Now I don't want this protocol for the user to enter a string. Instead, I want to force him to select from a list of a drop-down menu. So how do I do that? I'll give him two options of HTTP and HTTPS. So to do that, I'll make use of the value provider. So let's create a new class called protocol provider. Now I'll implement a value provider. Implements value provider. I have to give the implementation of value provider. Control Shift O to organize the import, and I'll use API values. Now I need to implement an unimplemented method, which is resolve. Okay, and it returns a set of values. So I can return the set of values using the value builder dot. This value builder has a static method called get values for string, and I'll return two values, which is HTTP and HTTPS. So I've created a protocol provider. So this two values will come under the drop down menu. All right. So let's go back to the custom configuration and indicate over here that it will be a drop down. It has to reference the protocol provider. So what I'm going to do is and annotate it as of values and reference the class protocol provider.class. Okay, so I've created a protocol as dropdown to show you, just to show you how things work. It's how it will look. It will be a dropdown protocol, and it will have two options, HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, so we have created a protocol provider and we have created a custom configuration. So now that a custom configuration is ready, it's time to decorate it with operations. Operations. Now I need to give the reference of a class which does any operation. So since I don't have the class created yet, I'll create it. New class. Again, do not name it as operations right away. Give it a different name like custom operations and hit finish. Now that I've created the custom operation class, let's quickly reference this as custom operations dot class. All right, Control Shift O to organize the imports, and it's custom operations. All the compile time errors have been gone, so we are good with the configuration. By far, we have created. If we see the HLD, we have created the modules. We have created a configuration. Okay, Now it's time to create the operations. So operations comes over here, component, part of the component. Now if we go back to the operation, custom operation, this class is blank. Now we need to write the whatever the operation that we are intending to do, we need to write it here. So let me initialize a logger first because we are going to do some processing over here and we should be logging those. So private static final logger equal to logger factory. I'll be using SL4J implementation of logger, get logger and custom operations dot class. So I have the logger implemented, Control Shift O. Let's organize the imports. I'll be using SL4J logger. Okay, there's problem with the logger. It should not be called org. It's of different package. Let me re-import this. Control Shift O, and I'll use the SL4J logger factory. And the compile time error has gone. Okay, so we have created a logger to log anything. Now for any operation, this operation will take a form of your connector. For example, HTTP requester, that's an operation, and similar thing we are going to implement over here. So any operation to become a connector has to be written in a public method. Make sure that the method is public. So I'll create a public method, public string, and I'll name that method as getCall, and this just let's just return null value to get rid of the compile time error. So I've created this public method and this has the ability to behave as a connector. Now to make it behave as a connector, I need to annotate it. I need to annotate it as give it an alias. Alias will be the name that will be displayed in the Mule palette, like the way a request is displayed. If you go back to the canvas and show you, so as you can see, listener request, the same name would come over there. So I'll give an alias of let me give an alias as get, so it will show as get on the Mule palette. Control Shift O to organize the imports. Next, I'll annotate it with, remember a media type is mandatory, so ensure you give it a media type. In case if you're not sure what it returns, just right away use a value any, static call to any, and ensure that strict is equal to false since you are returning any. Control Shift O to import. Okay, it's not able to resolve the reference of any, so let me manually import it. It happens sometimes, it fails to resolve. So org dot mule dot runtime dot api dot annotation dot, okay, I'll copy it from here. Annotation dot param dot media type dot n. Okay, so the compile time error has been resolved. Now this will behave as a get connector, but it does nothing. It just returns null value. And we want to make a get call through this. Now to make a get call, I need to write some code. So let's get started with the code. I'll make it has to return a string, so I'll return a string response. And in string, let me just initialize the string response equal to null. I'll populate it later on, and let me return the same response. All right, now what I'll do is I'll get the protocol. To get the protocol, I need to use the method argument. The protocol that I'm going to get is from the configuration that I created. This configuration has protocol, host, and base path, right? So let me pass the configuration as an argument. So I'll custom configuration and give it as a C. All right. For Mule to inject this custom configuration, I need to annotate this with @config annotation. Okay. Now I need to import. So config has been imported, and Mule will inject the value of configuration during the runtime. Okay. Now I need to create a URL. So before creating a URL, let me determine what is the protocol. What's the protocol coming from? The string protocol equal to, I'll use this c dot get protocol and if it equals dot equals if it equals https, then I'll make the protocol as https, else I'll make it as http. Okay, so the protocol is ready now. I have the protocol. Now I need to create a URL. So I'll need host, base path, and protocol, combination string of all of these three. Let me put it in a try catch because I'll use a URL connection and a URL object, so they throw exception which need to be handled. So URL equal to new URL. I'll initialize the constructor of the URL with control space. So you need a string over here. So I have three parameters which are protocol. So I'll use this protocol plus c dot get host plus c dot get base path. Okay, it's giving compile time error because URL is not imported, so I'll use java.net.url. So the error is gone. Now next is I need to create a URL connection. URL connection equal to URL dot open connection. So I'll open the connection here, and okay, let me organize the import java.net.url connection. Okay, I forgot to add a catch. Now let me catch all the exception. I'm not catching any selective exception. Any exception comes, it will be handled by this. Stack trace for now. Okay, so I've created a connection. I have a connection right now with me. Now since that REQ/RES site, if you see over here, this accepts HTTPS, and since I'm going to use this, To make HTTPS work, you have to add a parameter in headers like user agent. So add request property, user agent. Otherwise, it fails. It does not get the response. User agent. Give it any agent name. I'll give it as Mozilla. Now to get the response, I means the whatever the payload that it will send me back, I need to make some changes to that. Like it comes as an input stream, and I need to collect it into a string. So to save some time, I already have the code for it, and I'll use it right away. And I'll explain what's happening over here. Create that method. So what I'm doing is I'll take the URL connection which is present over here, the con object. I will pass it over here. And what I'm gonna do is I have a string builder. A string builder will prepare the final string. To get that, I'm getting an input string from the connection. Okay, and I'm pushing it to a buffered reader. I have used a try with resources, which implements auto closable, and it will automatically close this connection resource. Then I'm initializing the response with the new string builder, and then I'm appending all the responses. Okay, so this is how we are doing it. Let me organize the import by Control Shift O and save it. Okay, now it's complaining that the method is never used locally, so I'll use it locally. I response equal to get HTTP response and I'll pass the connection. So we have a couple of warnings that logger, I think logger is not used. So let's use the logger. Let me log something like logger.info sending a get request and in case of any exception, let's again log it. Error occurred, and once everything is done, we'll receive logger.info response received. Okay, so pretty much the basic structure of a custom connector is ready, and we are good to. So what I'll do, but we are missing one thing. I haven't added an icon. I want it. I want to give an icon to my custom connector. I don't want the generic one. So what I can do is I'll go to properties. I'll go to the source, my custom connector, and over here I have an SVG icon. Remember, you would need an SVG icon, and create new folder name icon and ensure that the file name is also an icon, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so I placed it in my custom connector project. Okay, so it's very much ready. At least a basic get connector is ready and ready to be used. So what I'll do is I'll do a Maven install and install it in the artifactory, in my local artifact local repository. So this is my custom connector. Let me open a command prompt and do a Maven install. so it might take a couple of minutes. So as you can see, the build has been completed successfully, and meaning the jar has been installed in my local repository. Let's get back to the studio. I already have a Mule project over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'll add the dependency for that particular custom connector. How do we get the dependency? It is simple. Let's go to the form.xml, and this should be the dependency. Okay, so this is the dependency. Let's copy this and let's go to the demo, not the demo but to the form.xml, and in the dependency section over here I'll add the dependency and close it in a dependency tag. Close the dependency tag. All right, so let me indent the tags. Okay, now the classifier, it's a Mule plugin, so let's copy this. Now I'll save it. So once I've saved, I should be able to see the dependency. See, that's REST. The name that I gave in the extension has come up over here. Let's go to the flow and I can see it appearing here, the modules, and there is the get. So how did things turn up? Like the rest, if you remember, I just mentioned when we were coding the custom connector. So whatever is the name that you give in custom extension class, the module has the same name, and and that is visible over here, right? The extension attribute value that we gave had rest, and so the same thing has come over here, rest, and the operation, the alias that we gave as get, has come over here. So let's drag and drop it in our flow, and let's create. Okay, so this configuration is already created. Now, as you can see, you have two options, HTTP and HTTPS. And I'll give the host as reqres.in, base path API users 2. You see, I'm going to get a single user, and this should be the data that I get back from the API. Okay, so I've used the base path as API user 2. Save it. Now, what I'll do is I'll also add a logger to log the payload. Payload. Save it. Now let's run the project. Okay, save the changes. So the application has started. Now let's go to the browser and trigger a get request to the listener. I'm triggering a request, and we should get the response back. So if you see, the connector logs are coming like com.mycompany.custom operation class. It has reached that class. It has sent the request, and the request is received, but it's still loading. And yeah, we got the output. And let's go back to the studio, and the logger message processor has the output. Right, so this is the output that we got, id equal to 2 jnet.vivo at request.in. Okay, and this should be the same present over here, right? So we got the same output, and that is a JSON output. Although it's not pretty printed, but that's okay. At least we have successfully created a get component, and we were able to hit the API. So this is how you can create a custom connector and then use it as per your requirement. Just make changes to the custom operation class and you're good to go. So in next video, I'll also create a post request, meaning a new component under the REST module, and that would be the post request. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.